Welcome back to the Primal Professor. So thanks for joining me today as I dive into figuring out the real difference between health span and lifespan. Let's see if I can break it down to help it really make sense. It's very important to understand the differences and make the distinction between health span and lifespan. The distinction between these two concepts will help us make informed decision, not just about our lifespan, but our overall well-being while we continue to be on this earth. And it can help us make informed decisions about our priorities and our lifestyle. So meet my dear friend Norm. The picture on the left is, I'd say Norm in his early 20s. And the picture on the right was I think he was about 100 years old in that picture. We have been friends for over 20 years, and Norm lived to be 101.5 and walked and talked up until the last 2 days of his life. I met Norm 20 years ago when I was a home health physical therapist, and I was treating his wife, and I had been in and out of over a couple years for various things she was trying to recover from. And so I got to know them very well. And the one period of time, Norm was having some odd symptoms, which he didn't know what it was. And Audie, his wife, was declining. And he had pulled me aside and he said, listen, I don't have any children and no family around here. And if something happens to me, I have a trust set up for Audie, but could you make sure she gets into a good facility for care? And that's a big responsibility. I didn't take it lightly, and I did check with my state board to make sure that I wasn't violating any ethical standards. I didn't accept any money for this. I was just doing it out of my care for Audie. And I was given the thumbs up and all clear, and I decided that I would do that for them. Well, it ended up that Audie passed before Norm, and then he asked me to do the same for him. However, Norm went on to live another 20 years without Audie, and that's how we became very close friends. The other thing you should know about Norm is about 10 years after that first picture on the left, Norm had a heart attack and was able to make the necessary changes to live another 50 years. He did things right with his health. So let's dive in. What good is living to 85 if the last 20 years are going to be spent in a recliner, surrounded by pills, going to doctor's appointments every week, every other week, and surrounded by medical devices? Many people assume that living longer automatically means you live a better quality life, but that's just not true. That's not always the case. It can be, but I would say more times than not, it isn't the case. We've all heard stories about people who lived into their hundreds, right? Yet they spent their last couple decades struggling with chronic illness and disabilities. So this misconception can lead to increasing our lifespan without considering the importance of our health span. It's true, we are living longer than we have ever before, but here's the catch. We're not living better. Let's unpack this a little bit. Take a look at this graph. It's showing you from poor health to optimal health, and then childhood, middle age, and advanced age. So first, let's get our definition straight. Lifespan is how long you live. Health span is how long you live without chronic disease, disability, or medical care. In the ideal world, what we all should aspire to, and I'm pretty sure we all want to do, is to compress illness to, some might say, last couple years, or I would like to say months or even days. And that's what Norm did. I mean, 6 months he couldn't live alone, but he walked and talked up until 2 days before he passed. So he mastered this concept where he lived independently. I would say in the last year, I helped him with the first thing to go are the bills and the pills, but he drove to the store, got his groceries, made his own food. He didn't eat out, right? He did all those activities, daily living. He bathed himself, he fixed things around the house. I'll tell you one little story. Norm's problem was his short-term memory was failing him, and he would always lose his keys. So one day he locked himself out of the house, and he grabbed the 2-story ladder, carried it around the back of the house at 100, okay, after a total hip, please. These gray hairs are from Norm, but climbed up to the 2nd-story roof and climbed in his bedroom window. Okay, that's how agile and spry Norm was. Was that safe? Absolutely not, and I don't condone it, and I gave him what for. But he really was amazing. So what we're trying to do is to compress that illness window, and that's called compressed morbidity, and that really should be our goal. We should have that in mind. So here's the reality. 6 out of 10 people in the United States have at least one chronic disease. But 4 out of 10 people have 2 or more chronic diseases. We're talking about type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, cancer, dementia, obesity. And here's the thing they all have in common. They're preventable. That's what we talk about here on the Primal Professor channel. We want to prevent chronic illness, and we do that through a low-carb lifestyle. And there's a low-carb spectrum depending on where you're entering. I would love to tell everybody who is in their 20s to start doing it now. Don't wait till you're in your 50s when I started a low-carb lifestyle. Here's the story with Norm. He had a cardiovascular event. He had a heart attack. And he made the necessary changes. Being the double engineer he was, a mining engineer and electronic engineer, he was very process oriented, very factual, very black and white, and what they told him to do, that's what Norm did. And the thing that they have in common is that they're mostly preventable, and we have a big part that we can play in that. So here's the kicker. Modern medicine can extend our life, but it doesn't always make us, it doesn't always improve function. And as a physical therapist, that was my profession. My goal was to make you more functional, to improve the quality of life. I'll give you an example. I had a gentleman who had severe COPD. He smoked, and the day his wife brought him into the clinic, he was on 2 liters of oxygen. She pushed him in a wheelchair, and when I did the evaluation, he was able to go 2 minutes on the lowest setting of walking on the treadmill. By the time I discharged him, his goal was, he was retired, his goal was to get back on the golf course. And here's the thing about disability. When you're feeling bad, you can't see the other end of it. You don't think you will improve. And that was a huge part of my role as a physical therapist. I always took it to be a huge role, was to tell them what could be. And that's what I want to do with this channel. I want to tell you what could be. And by the time I was done working with him, he had purchased a treadmill for at home and did two times a day, did 30 minutes. He was off his oxygen and back on the golf course. Whoever's listening to this, I don't know where you're starting, but you can make improvements that will impact your health span and the quality of your life. So what is fueling the disconnect between health span and lifespan? It starts with the standard American diet, ultra-processed foods high in sugar, seed oils, and refined carbs. And then you toss in a sedentary lifestyle. We know sitting is like the new smoking. And poor sleep, that's a huge one. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And chronic stress. What do you get? The perfect storm. Insulin resistance, inflammation, the two silent saboteurs of chronic disease. So just because you're giving your body fuel doesn't mean that you're giving it what it actually needs. So I want you to just imagine a person who eats constantly, meals and snacks full of processed carbs and sugars. Their cells are flooded with energy, but their cells are starved for nutrients. Over time, this results in insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. This is too much of the wrong fuel and not enough of the right support. In Alzheimer's disease, now it's known as diabetes type 3, the brain has trouble utilizing glucose for energy, yet there's plenty of it, an abundance of it in the bloodstream, but it just can't use it. You can have plenty of fuel, but the brain is starving. That's why Alzheimer's is now considered a metabolic disease. We thought it was the plaque formation, but now we know it's suffering from insulin resistance. And guess what? It can use ketones. The brain loves ketones. In the presence of glucose and in the presence of ketones, the brain is going to go for ketones, right? Sugar is a very quick, fast burning. You need to always replace it. But when ketones are on board, so that means you have to eat all the time. And if the brain is not getting nutrients, it's going to tell you, it's going to solicit you to go get something sugary if you're a sugar burner. When you're burning your own fat, you're getting a, excuse me, a steady state of fuel that doesn't run out, and it's producing ketones, and boy, it cleans. It's clean like natural gas. It's clean versus carbs is like burning coal, okay? And you get all that soot. That's the way I envision it, but I'm from the coal region here in Pennsylvania. So these diseases are not from a lack of food. It's from a lack of the right food and the inability to process food. Let me give you an example of deficiency when the body is lacking what it needs. So vitamin D deficiency, it really, we always knew that it was required for bone health. But I think within the last 20, 30 years, I think we really realized how important it is to so many biological functions and systems in the body. Let me give you an example now. Let's say someone spends most of their time indoors. They work under artificial lights and they rarely see the sun. And their diet is low in fish, fatty fish, eggs, because, right, we weren't supposed to eat eggs. They were bad for us. Egg yolks. We ate the whites, but we didn't eat the yolks, and that's where the vitamin D3 is. And other fortified foods. And on paper, this person is eating enough calories, right? But they're not getting enough vitamin D. And a crucial, just to give you an idea how crucial a nutrient this is for us, vitamin D is the only vitamin that we can synthesize ourselves, that we don't have to get it from an outside source. Think about that. That should tell us how important it is. And what it does is you go outside and you absorb sunlight, and then that sunlight converts cholesterol. Ooh, another bad thing, right? Not true. It takes cholesterol and it converts that into vitamin D3. So that's how important vitamin D3 is. So here's the thing. Too many people, I want to hammer this point home, too many people think disease happens to them. We believe that illness is a consequence of aging, so that in your 40s, fill in the blank, blah, 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 will happen. But really, it doesn't happen to us. It's not a consequence of aging. It's really, we're a collection of our habits, not our goals, not our aspirations, not our priorities. we are who we are because of our habits. And at the end, and in the description below, I'll make a recommendation for an excellent book who really taught me how to prioritize things in my life, build systems. And remember, Norm had systems. We'll talk about that in a little bit. He was an engineer. That's how his brain worked. Again, I'm going to say it again. We are a collection of our habits. Here's the good news. You can make changes that will dramatically improve your health span. Again, Norm, 50 years old, had a myocardial infarction, lived another 50 years. If you really want to see magic happen, then you just give the body what it needs. Pretty simple. What is the cost of all the chronic disease? And I'm not trying to be political here, but financially, chronic disease accounts for 90% of our 4.1 trillion annual budget on healthcare costs. Just think if we reverse insulin resistance, the impact that would have on that budget. Think of the costs coming back to the patient. You can spend that money on good quality food and not doctor's visits and pills and medical equipment. Wouldn't that be amazing? I see the potential. I see the potential. I feel the potential because I know I saw it happen with my own health. Okay, but the other cost here is the emotional cost. When people lose their independence, their mobility, and their cognitive clarity, when they're at that in-between stage, I saw with my mother. My mother smoked a lot, and she quit in her late 60s, but she had vascular dementia. And if the women in that family would live to be 100 if they didn't smoke. The ones that smoked lived to their 80s, and my mom made it to 83. But she had vascular dementia in the end. And it's so hard, and it's so hard to see someone who was fiercely independent and then have to put them in care. That's one of the hardest things I did. And I just hope I don't have to have my son do that for me. That's why I'm shooting for health span and equaling lifespan. That's my goal. And then socially, I think back to one family where years ago, the husband had Alzheimer's, and I remember the wife, I came in to help treat him, and in their home, and she had the bed, I remember the double bed pushed up against the wall, and she would have her husband sleep against the wall, and she would sleep on the outer edge so that she could hear if he got out of the bed and if she was too sound asleep. And he was a flight risk. He would try to get out. And so that poor woman, her own health and sleep had really it took a toll on her. And it's very hard for people to, loved ones to put people in memory care, but sometimes they're safer. But it's still very tough on families. 1, eat real food, nourish your body, eat whole foods, ditch the sugar, seed oils, and ultra-processed food, right? That's what we talk about here on this channel. Norm cooked his own food. He ate whole foods. I'm not telling you that he didn't have a sweet tooth, because he did, but for the most part, his foods were whole foods. Sleep is so important. You probably heard of the lymphatic system. You know, it's part of the cardiovascular system. We have our arteries that take blood to our tissues. We have the veins that bring it back to the lungs to get oxygenated again. But then there's the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system kind of filters, like a pool filter. It filters your blood. It takes extra fluid out. It takes bad cells out. And any waste products that there are, and it keeps us healthy, right? Well, the brain has its own lymphatic system. It's called the glymphatic system, and what that does is the same thing, but it happens in your brain. But here's the catch: It happens when you're in deep sleep. You need to move daily. Walking, it doesn't matter what it is. You could walk, do resistance training, you can do some cardio. Don't do chronic cardio. Chronic cardio can really, like every day for an hour or 2 hours, that can really cause more stress and raise your cortisol, because the body sometimes perceives that as stress. But if you do 30 minutes, say of cardio in the morning, and then you sit on the couch the rest of the day and don't do any movement, that's not really that good. What can actually be more powerful is NEAT, that's non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And so what Norm did was let's learn from Norm again, at the bottom of his steps was a chair with two 15-pound dumbbells. He came down in the morning, sat in the chair, put his shoes on, and did resistance training with 15-pound dumbbells up to 100 years old. Okay, he did that. And then every afternoon he took a 45-minute walk. And then after his walk, after sleeping 8 to 10 hours, he also took an afternoon nap. But in between morning and those activities, he was moving all day long. Walking, fixing things in the garden, fixing things outside, working on his car. He did everything. So for me, my routine is I get up when it's summer and it's nice, spring, summer, fall. I go outside, I pull weeds. I'm getting my morning sun, which sets my circadian rhythm, right? So if you can get morning sun, that will help your sleep. And before you go to bed, you want to get rid of all the blue lights, stay off your phone. Make the room cool. Norm would have the air conditioner running, except for wintertime, spring, summer, and fall, and make his room really, really cold. I'm like, what are you doing? You know, he did it all the time. And then he had a pitch black room. So if you can, turn out all the lights, make it dark, or get an eye mask. Also, try to reduce stress and track your labs. So Norm was able to adjust his lifestyle to continue on robustly for another 50 years after having a heart attack. This was probably 2 months right before he passed. He wanted pizza. So we went to the local pizza joint, and I said to him, where do you want to sit? And we're here, I'm enjoying it. He's splitting an antipasto with him. He's waiting for his pizza. And he also wanted a beer. And I said, where do you want to sit? He goes, I want to sit at the bar. So there we are, sitting at the bar. He was a hit. He charmed all the patrons there and all the staff. And he was just a hoot. So I think we can learn a lot from him. And I hope this was helpful. If this is a new concept to you, please take a look at the videos that I have at the end to get you started if you're new to the ketogenic or low-carb lifestyle. And also in the description, I promised you a resource. It's a book by James Clear. It was one of the best books that really can help you organize your time and get you in the mindset of improving your health span by stacking some good habits. And you may have heard of it. It's a very popular book, Atomic Habits. Okay, if this was helpful, please hit a like button, or better yet, leave me a comment. YouTube really loves to see engagement. I'm a new channel trying to get off the ground. And ask me a question or share something that works for you, what you do for your health span, and then consider subscribing so you get more science-backed information. And remember, stay healthy, stay in ketosis. I'll see you in the next one.